So welcome everyone to the Vitality Prescription. I'm so honored. I have Tracey Winn with me. And so Tracey, I've known Tracey, I guess, virtually for a bit. We have a mutual best friend, Madison Walton. And I met Tracey virtually during the beginning of the pandemic. And so Tracey, she is a yoga teacher, herbalist, and Ayurvedic nutritionist. And she also runs yoga retreats through her company, Spiritual Lit Wellness. And it's awesome. Spirit Lit Yoga and Wellness. You can check them out. We'll definitely put the link below. They run amazing, amazing retreats with, really not only just yoga, but they're in places like Costa Rica, and they have, farm to table nutrition, real good thing. I think we've been eating this world for so long that we don't have access to at home. So Tracey, actually, before, I've always heard about Tracey through my Madison, but I met her in the pandemic when I was really trying to clean out my act. I hadn't lost weight. My sugar was still a mess. And she really ran me through my first, cleanse and detox from glyphosate, something I was really suffering with. And so I'm just so honored you're here. I can't believe one of my mentors is on my show. So thanks for coming.
Well, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
And so, yeah, so today, we are going to be talking about a lot of what Tracey does and how, Ayurvedic medicine can really help us with things like diabetes and obesity, and honestly, our overall metabolic health and just well-being. So Tracey, I guess let's just get started to like kind of the basics, about Ayurveda and, how it affects our health and your view on it.
Yeah, so Ayurveda is kind of a funny word. It is life science. So literally the wisdom or the knowledge of life. And it has its roots in India. It is the sister science to yoga. Yoga, a very vast science in and of itself, involving everything from breath and movement and being, kind of mind, body, and spirit. And then Ayurveda is the medicinal science that goes along with it. How do we further align ourselves with the rhythm of nature to bring ourselves back to a state of balance? And that's what it's really about, especially in our modern world. Illness and dis-ease is a state of dis-ease. It's a state of imbalance. And so when we start to understand different levels of ourself and our health, when the scales start to tip and we start to get into a state where a symptom is flaring and something's happening and we don't know what, we can kind of look at ourselves from these tools that we have and the things that we know and know what we need to do to bring us back to a state of balance. So Ayurveda, again, it's a very, very vast science. I am not an Ayurvedic doctor or a practitioner. That is 8 years of school, just like a doctor. I am an Ayurvedic nutritionist and yoga teacher, but I have studied Ayurveda for, 12 years probably. I was healed by it, by an herbalist, and I didn't know at the time that that's what she was doing to read me. I was just like, holy cow, how is she nailing everything about me? How does she know these things about me? And I haven't told her, I've never met her. And I realized after the fact, once I learned Ayurveda, I was like, oh, she was looking at me from this lens of this science to figure out what was going on. And I became instantly intrigued, and then I became her student. So I went to herbalism school, and we learn traditional Chinese medicine, traditional European medicine, which led to traditional modern medicine, and then Ayurveda. And I just always gravitated towards Ayurveda. I just understood it so much. And I realized it's because it's what had led me to my healing so long ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so funny you said that, because I do find, as I've shifted, my learning, right? We're always learning when you're practicing, whether it's nutrition, medicine, yoga, you're always practicing, right? And that phrase is so important. You start to, right? You're always evolving, you're always learning. And I do find the way I've shifted how I view medicine and my practice, even though I didn't know it at the time, is definitely like very much like, like Ayurveda, right? Like nutrition based, not putting kind of band-aids on the symptoms, but getting to the root cause, which is a really big part of, Ayurveda nutrition and also medicine, especially when it comes to things like diabetes and obesity. And I do, that really resonated with me when you were talking about how they were treating you. The medicine, the natural beauty of it is it's about you, right? They're treating your
Totally.
natural state, right? To bring it to where it needs to be. And that's such a unique thing, because I think in traditional Western medicine, a lot of time, everyone gets the same formula, the same algorithm, right? Diabetes, we're
Totally.
like metformin, Jardiance, Ozempic, right? And with Ayurveda and all these things, and when it comes to your nutrition, it's not the same nutrition recommended for everyone. It's not the same, herbs recommended for everyone. So I do find that fascinating, and also something we need to integrate definitely with our traditional Western model.
Yeah, and I think it's absolutely amazing what you and your clinic does. I mean, the just the integrative medicine, the lifestyle medicine, the fact that more modern medicine that is covered by insurance is leaning this way is so, so awesome. Just to get to the root, like you said, to not slap a Band-Aid on it, and you can take a pill, you can take a pill, you can do everything. And if your lifestyle is not in check, you're not really going to get well.
Absolutely. And I think that's where I find even, a lot of even traditional nutritionists, right, do better than a lot of our docs, let alone like, one that does it this way through a root cause. Because when you're kind of doing this nutrition, right, you can give all the medicine in the world, or even herbs, right? If you're not
Mhm.
taking out the dumpster fire you're throwing in there, right, you could put out the fire, but if you're still throwing
Absolutely.
gasoline and wood and a little spark, I mean, it's going to come right back. So it's absolutely amazing. I've learned so much from you, and, through studying this stuff at this point. So tell me a little bit more about, or actually, before we jump into that, I want to like talk about, some of the herbs, like, things you learned and different herb treatments you've undergone. You did a recent trip. Tell me all about all of that.
Yeah, so Ayurveda is taking specific herbs that are based in India. It's definitely based on food as medicine, and what types of foods you eat for your specific type that it classifies you in is very, very important for your healing. But then they do have a traditional cleansing process. Like she was saying, you can put all this good food in there, but if you don't get the junk out first, it's not going to make a difference. So kind of going back to that, there are 3 different categories in Ayurveda, and it puts you into 3 different just little categories, and you are some variation of all 3 of them. And the goal kind of is to be balanced across all 3. That equals just a place where your mind, body, and spirit are in kind of that equilibrium, which equals homeostasis or health. And the first one is called Vata, and that is the constitutions of air and space. And it takes into account everything, not just your symptoms or your physical self. It takes even into account like your emotions, your personality. So like I am Vata imbalanced. My thing in life is to try to balance my Vata, but I'm very outgoing. I'm kind of anxious. My head always has 10 things going on at one time. And that's my natural state. I try to balance that. People who are moms who have young kids, oftentimes they're in a state of Vata because they have 25 things going on at one time, because they're making sure that their child is alive and well every day, plus juggling all the other things of life. From a physical standpoint, again, it means there's an abundance of air and space in the body. So things like cracking joints, very thin bones, brittle hair, weak nails, just things like this. So to determine your constitution, that's what it's called, you take a test. And I think Yasmine's going to leave you a link here for the test.
Yes.
And you take it twice. So the first time you take it of what kind of the way you were born, how you were in adolescence, what was your physical features like, kind of your innate state, what was your personality like, that type of thing. Obviously, throughout life, we are a product of our environment, of our everything we learn. Like she was saying, we're in constant evolution. So you take the test the second time based on where you are right now, and life happens, right? Hormones happen, weight gains, weight losses happen, diseases happen, trauma happens, and that affects everything about us. So you basically then have these 2 tests based on your innate state and your current state, and then you're able to see where the discrepancies lie. So that's kind of how you determine that. And you just go through and you answer some questions, and then you tally it up. It's really easy. And then you can see where your mark number is the highest, so where your imbalance would be. The second constitution is called Pitta, and that is fire and water. So very leaders are a lot of anger, a lot of driving force, willpower, very loud, boisterous. From a physical standpoint, very muscular, kind of reddish skin. That's just a couple different areas about it. And then heat and water. So usually they have an abundance of heat in their digestive system, and that can present itself in a lot of ways. People kind of with that constitution are prone to like breakouts on the skin, cystic acne, digestive issues that have to do with heat, that type of thing. And then the third constitution is called kapha. And kapha is earth and, oh gosh, earth and water. And so very, from a physical standpoint, very nice complexion, very thick, beautiful, shiny hair, bigger bones, oily, really nice skin. And they have a much more calmer demeanor. They, when they're imbalanced, they can fall on the side of apathetic or lazy, weight gain, that type of thing. When they're imbalanced, they are motivated. Their calmness is a leading presence, but from that state, you've met people like that where they're just this presence in the room and it immediately makes you go, huh? So that's the three different constitutions, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And you'll note when you take the test that probably two of them are going to be high and one is going to be low. And so then you can look at that and see where something needs to be shifted. So at the point in my life where I got really, really sick, my Vata was completely out of control. It was very high with Pitta as well. But my Kapha was like nothing because I was a complete hot mess. I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, living off of caffeine, working 4 jobs, going out every night. It was chaos. I describe it like this kind of. So I learned that I had to do a lot of things to bring that into balance. I had to learn to calm down. I had to slow down. I had to stop eating cold, raw foods and start eating warm, mushy, cooked, oily foods. So you bring in the opposite energy or the opposite thing to bring it back to a state of balance.
Yeah, and that absolutely works. And what I love about it is it's so intuitive, right?
Yeah.
It's so intuitive, right? You're on one spectrum. What do you need to do to get to the other spectrum? So, to get you basically to where you need to be balanced. So that's great. And thanks so much for explaining about the doshas because it's hard to explain all of it. But once you see it and you understand it, and especially when, they do the test, it's very obvious. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's very simple. And, the words are weird, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, because they're Sanskrit. But once you see the test, it's really simple. And I always tell people, I teach Ayurvedic workshops in my retreats. And I'm like, it is a vast science, like biology. I mean, it even involves like astrology on some levels. And I don't even know that part of it, But if you just have the base understanding of it for yourself, knowing where your imbalances lie and what it means, it can help you so much when a symptom arises or when you start to feel like, oh gosh, why am I so tired all the time right now? Well, I can look at this and what needs to change. So it's a really powerful tool to just have. And again, you don't have to know the whole giant science of it or be an Ayurvedic doctor to utilize it in your own life,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny because we've spoken about, I think we talk about digestion more than most people,
Yeah.
That's how you know someone's on the right path when they talk to their girlfriend and they're talking about their poop. You know what I mean? But
totally.
we talk about things like, naturally I was very constipated and I didn't realize that was part of my, being imbalanced, and this was like, especially during pandemic, I was really like, go, 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 very much in a state of panic, especially, New Jersey or New York, it was a mess. And no one was thinking to themselves, like, maybe I should work on that. Like, why is my, like a gastrointestinal tract a mess, rather than let me just try an experimental drug and see how that goes. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. I mean, I did them both and I will say the experimental drug didn't help. But right. So the idea is that, I love that. And, what I found is like through my research and really been studying this because, my passion being diabetes and obesity is that when you combine taking out all the crap, right? Eating for your dosha, living your life for your dosha too, not just eating, right? It's more than just food. And then, then using these herbs like, bitter melon, fenugreek, you name it. I use so many, dozens of them now, that help with that kind of imbalance, especially for a lot of my diabetics who I find not all the time, right? Our diabetics can be everywhere, but I do find a lot of them have some kapha traits, okay, at the base of it. And I think that's because, right, there's such a overlap with that. And it could be partially caused by that, right? Because it runs in families, and families live a lot of the same way. We learn our behaviors from our families, how we drink water, right? So I do find that really interesting. And I do find when people do take me up on it, at first they're a little hesitant, and they do the traditional stuff and they want the herbs. And sometimes I need to give them that first, and that's okay. It's not going to hurt anything, but it is better when you can just do all of it at the same time and then use like the traditional Western model when you need to, right? Until things heal as they're healing, that's okay. But I think it's so much of a black versus white thinking that, especially I find in America, we're very focused on what's right, what's wrong, versus why wouldn't you do everything in your power to cure yourself from disease,
Exactly. That's where the lifestyle comes in so much, right? Like obviously food is a major part of our life. Biggest probably food, sleep, water, rest, that type of thing, and activity. And so the lifestyle practices and knowing where, do I have too much energy in this area? Do I not have enough energy in this area? And like you said, with those diabetic patients, they can orally take the medicines and the food and all that. And if they couple it with the lifestyle practices, like how much more manageable is their condition, or how much quicker does it get them to a state of feeling better?
Oh yeah. I mean, the minute they start to sleep and just bring that cortisol and that inflammation down, everything works 10 times better is like the best way I could put it. It's like an accelerator to anything. So it's really important. And I used to be the type to be like, go, 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 go. And now it's just way more peaceful for sure. I mean, I could even be better about it if I'm honest. Definitely something I work on day to day for sure.
Yeah. And that's, what, we have our tendencies and we have our personalities. And oftentimes it is like, I call it the daily surrender. I mean, it is a daily surrender for me to learn to be still. I mean, it took me 5 years to learn to sit down and like watch a movie. It was so contrary to my nature, but it was everything to my healing. It was imperative. And it's interesting. I totally went off on a tangent from what you asked me about the Ayurvedic cleansing process. So I went to India in April, and my husband and I did 21 days of the Ayurvedic cleansing process, which is called Panchakarma. And I'm going back to it now because one of the main aspects of healing is rest and is stillness, and not letting your body be fighting for what processes it needs to focus on, just in that stillness and in eating very bland foods. Your body's not focusing on digestion, it's focusing on cleansing, it's focusing on detoxing. So it was hard. I mean, we, even for a yogi on day 14, we were like, we are losing our minds right now. But do you want me to talk about that?
Yeah. So Panchakarma, basically, right? Just for our viewers, like generally big picture, it's detoxification and rejuvenation therapy in Ayurveda. Okay. And she did the most legitimate one in India. So she's going to take us through kind of the process of kind of what they did and how that kind of differs a little bit from what we do over here and how that went for her. So yeah, Tracey, tell us all about it. What an experience.
Yeah. So it was super interesting. So Ayurveda is about 5,000 years old, just like yoga. And the place it was started and the place where it is the most popular is Kerala, India, which is the very, very bottom state of India. So we went there. And the place where I do my retreats in Costa Rica is a holistic Ayurvedic 5-star resort. But the doctors they have at the spa are from Kerala, India. So that's how we knew where to go. Yeah. So that was
I was wondering how you
where
figured
we,
that.
yeah. So that's how we figured out Kerala. So we were kind of like drawn there. And it's so fascinating. I was telling you the other day, there are as many Ayurvedic hospitals as there are Western modern medicine hospitals. Most of the pharmacies that you see are Ayurvedic pharmacies. They're all herbs. So it was just really fascinating to see that because you don't see that here. And I asked the doctors there that we were working with, I was like, how common is it to use Ayurveda still? I mean, obviously emergency medicine is needed and used all over the world. But he was saying for regular day-to-day illnesses, it's about 50-50. And he was like, you can't ignore the convenience of modern medicine. Most people, if they can take a pill for something, they want to do it that way because they want to get done with it quickly, But so that was just really, really interesting to see, just going by an Ayurvedic pharmacy after Ayurvedic pharmacy. And it's such just built into their culture as a way of life. It's not It's not like here where we have to like learn alternative medicine or something like that. They're just brought up in it as much of a part of their culture as their religion is, really. So it was really interesting. But we went to this retreat center, and you meet with the doctor every single day and you do your Ayurvedic quiz. And it was interesting how much they don't tell you about it. And I noticed because I know Ayurveda, but they didn't like explain it to people. So other people who were there who didn't know about it, they were just there for the treatments, like they didn't know their dosha or anything like that. So it was interesting. Like, I think they want people focusing more on just the healing, just be in the process of it, than like psychoanalyzing it with your head like I do.
Me too. And that
Yeah,
way.
right. Yeah, I'm like, tell me more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But so the base of the Panchakarma, it doesn't have to be 21 days, but that is the traditional time period of the full cleansing process. People who are very, very ill with stage 4 conditions or severe autoimmune, chronic diseases, they can do it. There are people who do it for months to get them to a place where their body is healed. A lot of people there were not doing it for 21 days. You can do it for 2 weeks, but the deep cleansing part of it, which I'll tell you about, it does, if you're there longer, you're going to get more benefits because of this cleansing process. So the whole thing starts with what's called an Abhyanga massage. And that is basically a lymphatic drainage massage. And I did it for the first time in Costa Rica, and I don't really even know how to describe it to you guys. It's 2 practitioners working on you at the same time. And it's not like a nice spa massage. You are on a very specific wood table that has grooves on the edges of it because they slather your body in hot medicinal oil. So they have these pots and they have herbs in the pots with all this oil, and they slather your body in it. And then the motions that they do, it's a very specific motion based on your lymphatic drainage. And it is, it's very fast and crazy. And you're just on this wood table kind of sliding off it. And you're like, oh my God, it's really crazy at first. And it's a crazy experience. It's 90 minutes long. And at my retreats, I've had people come to the retreats who maybe had been through like a healing process, but they were on the back end of it and they were kind of living an unhealthy lifestyle still, or they had something that was wrong with them that they didn't know. And just from a one-off massage, they had pretty severe detox symptoms. Wow. So one person had like severe migraines afterwards. The other one was like sick, like had a fever. So it really does, it's made to ignite your immune system, right? If you're igniting your lymphatic system and the body starts draining, you're igniting your immune system to kick up all those toxins to get them out. But when that happens, if your drainage isn't correct, you have all that kicked up in there and then it has nowhere to go, so it can present itself in symptoms like headaches or fevers or rashes or whatever it may be.
Right. That's true. Your first detox is always brutal. I mean, like, right, when you don't know. Yeah. And I can imagine if that was your first one, just igniting all of that. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, and I always warn people because my retreats are only like 5 days long. So I'm like, I'm just going to warn you, like this could put you out for like a day. It's not common, but it could.
But I mean, doing that at a 5-star resort sounds more appealing to me. I'll be honest. Me and flights don't work so well. I think going to India and worrying about the bed being nice, I feel like doing that in Costa Rica in a nice bed is the way I need to do it.
Yeah. It's a different experience for sure. But so that's always the base. And then I didn't know this, but when you're there for 21 days, that's the beginning of your day every day. So you can see if you did that every day, how much it would be like moving out of your body and, moving the inflammation and the toxins. So after that's kind of your initial to get your immune system going, to get your drainage pathways moving. And then you start the cleanse process. And they use ghee, which is basically when you have butter fat and melt it, this substance rises to the top and they scrape that off. And that's called ghee. And it's a big part of Ayurvedic medicine and of just Indian lifestyle in general.
Right.
And in their cleansing process, you drink the ghee and it has drawing chelating properties and it pulls all the toxins to one place in your gut so that it's easier to dispel. So we started with like a medicine cup, like a 6-ounce cup. That was day one. And it's just melted butter, basically. And the only thing you can eat on those days is changi, which is like, that's changi in China, but it's rice porridge in India. It's just like basmati rice that's cooked way, way down. It's like a rice soup, like a salty rice soup. And but it's weird because you're not really hungry when you start that. The next day, it's like a quarter more than that. So I did 4 days of the cleansing process. So by the last day, I drank 48 ounces
Oh
of
my gosh.
ghee. It was, I mean, my husband had to like sit beside me, cheer for me. And I was like holding my nose like a little baby and like doing this. It was a lot because what happens is on day 2-ish, everything starts smelling like ghee to you. And the thought of it makes your skin crawl. You are so nauseous and you can't even talk about it. I've never been like that in my life. I have never not been hungry in my life. And there was no way that I could eat. I didn't even want the rice porridge. I was like, I can't even go in that kitchen. I can't even smell that food in the restaurant or I will lose it. So very, very
Oh my
interesting. But
gosh. Yeah,
they
I
were
believe
like,
it.
yeah, they're like, it's good when everything starts smelling like that. And like when your whole body starts responding to that, because it means that the ghee is integrating into your body and it's doing what it's supposed to. And I was like, all right, well,
Makes
that makes sense. But everything smells like that. So when you go in later in the day to have your oil head massage and this other treatment where they drip oil on your head and all this, it smells like ghee to you. So you're just like kind of, and it's hot in there and you're kind of sweating. Like it's an experience, you guys. But
I believe it.
yeah, but the inflammation does leave your body during those days pretty significantly. And you slowly start to eat food again. And we were talking about this. The diet is a traditional Ayurvedic diet. The main thing you eat when you're cleansing in Ayurveda is called kachari. And it is a very soft rice with Ayurvedic herbs and like some cooked down vegetables and mung beans in it. I thought we were going to be eating that the whole 21 days, and we weren't. It was a very nice surprise.
Oh my
But
gosh.
the diet is still, everything is warm. You hardly eat anything cold at all. And it is very much rice and
Mm.
millet based. And I was saying, in our culture, we don't eat rice and millet and grains for every single meal. Some people do, but not like they do in
Yeah,
Asia. And
right.
so for someone with a vata imbalance like me, who suffers with constipation and dehydration and stuff like that, eating all that dry rice and millet was not good for my digestion. But enemas
Right.
are a part of the process. So they start with oil enemas, medicated sesame oil, just in like the small enemas. And then I eventually had to have a big one with a medicinal decoction in there to get everything moving. And they do the enema with, then you go into this steam thing. It's a box and your head is poking out and they turn it up and it's a steam room without your head in it. It's so
I
funny.
love those pictures. Those are funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
love
it was
seeing
great.
I
Yeah,
love
but
it.
they're getting you to detox at that point. And then after you've gone through that for 2 weeks, then they start just focusing on specifics. For me, I have a eye condition from overexposure to the sun. So they were very focused on my eyes. For other people, it's sinuses or maybe skin or hair, whatever, even, very cosmological. That's not the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Esthetician things. Some people are there getting facials every day, getting acne, you know, rid from their body and things like that.
Right, right. And I think it's so interesting, like just seeing it from that part of the journey. I think, especially with my clients a lot, I feel, especially if they're from Asia or have background, the rice thing, especially when they're already constipated, that kind of dry, makeup, they really don't believe me until they do change it up a little bit. And not even necessarily cutting out rice, but changing like meal proportions, right?
Yeah.
Just the ratios is enough. You don't have to give up all your favorite foods or the way you were brought up, but just changing the ratios will change the ratios in you, so it's interesting. You're talking about that. And then also about that steam, that hot therapy. Like we know in studies now, it's proven even in Western medicine, right? Hot and cold therapy, these kind of things. And I think it's become very, we're all learning about, dry brushing, lymphatic drainage right now, right? That's become very like trendy. You'll see
Yeah.
someone doing that, on their Instagram, but it really does work. And so I think, yes, it's not going to be as good as what you experienced, but it's great for, especially for maintenance, right? To keep that everything moving. And that's something anyone could do at home for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that is in Ayurveda, your morning routine is called your dinacharya, and it is a vital part of Indian culture, but it's a vital part of not even just a healing process, like something that you do every day to start your day grounded. And like you said, the dry brushing is a part of that, tongue scraping, if you've seen that.
Yes.
But doing abhyanga to yourself. So doing that either a dry massage or a massage with oil on yourself to continually keep your lymphatic system moving to make sure it doesn't get stagnant. And, when things stop flowing, energy stops moving, stagnancy happens. That's when stuff, toxins accumulate.
And I will say there is something to be said for these kind of ritual and routines because, back in the day, people just had just enough time to, gather their food, take care of themselves, whether it was spiritual or physical, and then they'd fall asleep and the day would get started. I think now in our culture, we maybe don't do these things as much. And then we have this free time. And what happens with that, right? We put in more toxin on the TV or eating at the fridge at night because we aren't taking up our time doing things like this for ourselves, right? Because think about it, if you did just dry brushing before your shower every night or something like this, or
Yeah,
a bath or whatever you do, I mean, that's 10, 15 minutes that you're not doing something else that maybe isn't hurting you. And so I do find when my clients take these practices and start doing them, it really takes up the time that they're not doing things that are harmful, like doing no harm, right? Which is
so
at the end
good.
of the day,
Yeah,
right? The body can really heal itself if we just don't put some stuff in it. So if we're taking it up with good things, it's really easier to get into balance because you don't have time for the bad things.
totally.
So I
That's
do
such a
find that
good
interesting.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, I've
And,
noticed that.
we know too that like stress is obviously the cause of what percentage, like 90% of disease or something. It's some insane number. Um,
Right.
and we know that the amount of input and the amount of toxic activities and distractions is increasing our stress, whether we realize it or not. And our organs, like we are not just digesting what we put in our mouth. Like we are digesting, we are processing what we see, what we hear, what we feel, what we're around. So our environments, our activities, what we watch, what we listen to, and what we absorb even, and that's all just really important because like you said, like, I mean, this thing, it's just a
Oh,
part
yeah.
of us, practically a part of our hand, and
Yeah.
it can just us for hours and hours and hours. And it's just input, 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 which is raising our cortisol, which is raising our chance of disease. And I don't know, travel is so fascinating to me now. The last time I was in Asia was 8 years ago. And
Uh,
from then until now, to see the change in these ancient cultures that when I was there 8 years ago, still very much had, it was just like being in a completely different world, just so ancient. And
yeah.
now everybody has that phone. And because of it, the whole world is subjected to our culture and our
100%.
lifestyle, our pace. And so it's really interesting to see that shift and how that's changing, obviously, the psyche, but the stress levels as a community, as a culture.
Absolutely. I agree. And I agree with you. I think it's everywhere. And I personally don't believe we were designed to take all of it in, right? It takes thousands of years for the body to evolve, and so, but the way the media has changed so much in the past 50 years, good luck with the stress levels. And then in addition, even the way they target us for these, food or alcohol, the way they do these commercials for drinking. I mean, it's criminal,
Totally.
and then
I
we're
mean,
like, oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, you talk about something and the ad pops up for it. Like,
yep,
sometimes I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like it, but other times I'm like, oh gosh, I forget that it's like it's listening.
yes, a hundred
But it,
percent.
yeah. And it's, my pastor gave a sermon once, like on this, the distraction and all that. And he threw out a percentage from a study. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but it basically was that in the year like 1990, the compared to now, the amount of information that we consume on a daily basis now is the equivalent to what we took in a week back then, which is just great. And it's
Wow.
probably more than that now because that was before reels and shorts were a thing, you know?
Right. I know. It's unbelievable. There's another study I saw recently that for Gen Z or Gen Z, what generation are they, right? That so anyways, 90% of them do not see or take their medical care from either a doctor or practitioner, a trainer, or something like that. Get 90% get it from TikTok. TikTok. So that generation that's like
Oh,
totally into TikTok. Can you believe that? They had them do a
oh,
survey, it was a survey study. And so yeah, so it's pretty crazy because we know for a fact, right? Anyone can be posting anything and they may not even be in that space at all, you know? And so it is a little scary.
really, really scary. And we know too, like you were saying earlier, that healing is not a one size fits all approach. So even with the surgence of holistic medicine and all herbs, you know, people are taking herbs with the consciousness that we take pharmaceuticals, you know,
Yeah.
and one herb, yes, it might have an affinity for the liver or whatever, but it might not be, it's not going to be the same in your body and my body. You know, there is not
No.
a one size fits all approach in holistic medicine or modern medicine. And it's, you know, that's being stripped with with social media.
Absolutely. And I think I get that a lot for people who are, so my practice is, you know, it's different practices. It's an insurance model, but for people who, my clients are outside of that model, who really want to get to the root cause and do things that are outside of their insurance that their insurance won't cover, I get asked that question a lot. Like, how long is it going to take for me to heal? Well, that depends. That could be, you know, 6 months to, you know, 12 months, depending, you know, and we really need to look under the hood. We really need to look, first of all, you need to answer this very, very long questionnaire, right? I need to understand where your symptoms are. And then also different testing like toxicity testing, where they can look at levels of things like glyphosate and these things, organic acids, because depending on what is affecting it, maybe the herbal supplement, also things you have to avoid or things you need to include to heal.
Yeah.
And so I do find, right, it's very different per person, but people want just like, oh, this is the herb, this is the new hot medication, this is the new, you know, kind of thing. And the berberine is not, you know, although I do include berberine, like in a lot of my protocols, it's not gonna, it's the last 10%. Those things are the last 10%. We really need to fix what's coming in. Our body, once you heal the cells at a cellular level, is really meant to do it itself. It can really do a lot if you give it the tools to do so.
Yeah.
So it is interesting, but I agree. People want the quick fix and they're like, oh, I took an herb for like a month and I didn't notice a difference. I'm like, it takes way longer than that, right? A blood cell lives 120 days. So if you want to have a new one and get things different, right? It's going to take at least that long to see some results, you know? And I think we're
Yeah.
so used to, I want it immediately. And that's the big problem for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And with that, I think, you know, like we were talking about, the cleansing periodically is really important, because then you are getting the junk out of the way. So whether you are just doing a protocol with food, or you are taking herbs, or maybe you are taking even a medication, once all the junk is cleared out of the
Yeah.
way, it's going to be that much more effective once everything that our body can't process is removed from us.
Yeah, and the best way I like give that analogy is, you know, I could take example the mop, right, on the floor, and try to clean my floor. But if I don't pick up the big chunks of food, my
Yeah,
kids dropped all over my table and the floor, and God knows how much food I clean up. But anyways, you know what I mean? No mop is gonna help. I need to clean up the chunks, get rid of the garbage, and then maybe my mop can really get under there for that dirt and grime if I, you know, push hard enough. But yeah, that's the idea. I really need to kind of sweep it off first on that big layer or nothing's going to get through 100%.
yeah. And you know, there's all the
And then
indication.
I wanted to kind of do yoga because you're just so experienced. Yes, yes. I wanted to talk a little bit about, because you know, you is like the most experienced yogi I know. I want to hear your thoughts on things like yoga and breath control affecting us for sure. Like I know, and I'm going to butcher this word, but they say, but you correct me and say it properly. I'm not a linguist, I'm an endocrinologist. I don't speak very well at all. I'm from
You
Jersey
speak
too. We
Latin.
speak like not real English. So pranayama, right? Or breath control, you know, for managing stress. I want to talk a little bit about that because I find this for diabetics is just so helpful, you know, and some techniques maybe people can use to help them. Any tips for our viewers today?
Yeah, absolutely. So you did say it right, pranayama. Prana
Okay.
is your life force, right? Our breath is our life force. It is the signal that we are alive. That is the physical aspect of it. And then we have actual prana, like that energy that actually enlivens all of us, that makes us a living being. And so pranayama means breath control. And so in yoga, there are all different breaths or breathing practices that you do that are made to do different things in the body. Some heat the body, some cool the body, some calm the body, some bring the body up more. But it is fascinating what you can do for stress levels with the breath. And I always tell this story. So the main breath in yoga that you do when you're doing an asana or the practice of the postures is called ujjayi. It's victorious rising breath, and it's done only through your nose. So you inhale deep, and when you do a diaphragmatic breath, when you inhale, your belly actually pushes forward. And on the exhale, the belly goes in. If you take an inhale and you go like this, that's a good indication that your body's in a state of stress and fight or flight mode. Because if it were calm, when you inhale, the belly goes forward because the diaphragm goes first. But with ujjayi breath, you inhale through the nose and you exhale through the nose. And the exhale sounds like this. I'll kind of do it for you. So you inhale and then you exhale.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like you're pushing the breath down your throat. And then
wow.
tea kettle, you're warming it up there. And that breath, when you practice it, is super, super powerful. I was on a plane once with my grandma, and she started having a panic attack on the plane because it was getting really bumpy. And I started doing that breath with her and just inhaling and exhaling through the nose. And I was guiding her through it. And I was like, just see if you can do it a little deeper. Because basically when we get panicked or stressed, our breath shortens and we start mouth breathing. We start breathing short so that our lungs aren't even getting the air and then sending it out, in our blood. And it was amazing. In a matter of seconds, she brought her heart rate back down and she was calming down. We continued to do it for a few minutes and it brought her to where she didn't have a panic attack. So it's one of those things that's a really powerful tool to have when you are feeling anxious or something. You can be like, okay, I'm going 100 miles a minute right now. I can feel my anxiety, my jaw is clenching, my heart is pounding. I can sit down and I can close my eyes and I can breathe deeply just for 2 minutes. And I can myself back down. Another popular breath that you'll probably see on YouTube. So ujjayi is just breathing in and out through the nose with deep breaths. And another one that's popular, that's not very confusing, that you can practice at home is called box breathing.
Yes.
And in box, do you talk to your patients about this?
That one and the other one with the finger on the nose. That was like my new.
Oh, this one. Yeah.
Newest one I learned. That one really helps me a lot.
Yeah. I do that
those two. I feel like they work.
I already wake up
a lot.
I wake up in an anxious state already. So the first thing I do when I sit up, when I wake up, I scrape my tongue and I sit down and I do that alternate nostril breathing to balance the two hemispheres of my brain and just bring me to a state of calm before the day starts.
100%. That's the way to do it. You taught me that. I think you got me hooked to that book, the 5 a.m. Club. Oh yeah. And I said, because I used to wake up with my kids, right? I used to get my me time at night, right? And then I'd get up with the kids because I stayed up like too late trying to get some me time. But instead I do the opposite now. My me time is in the morning. It's non-negotiable. I'm doing some meditation, some type of yoga type practice, even if I look funny doing it, and journaling. But I got that from you for sure. That definitely moved the needle for me big time.
Yeah, it's a big, if you're someone who's struggling with anxiety or stress, just setting a routine for yourself as small as waking up at the same time, going to bed at the same time, and eating at the same time every day will do wonders for bringing yourself to a state of balance. But I'm a huge proponent of the 5 a.m. club. And a lot of people are like, it's just not plausible. I don't go to bed till midnight. And I'm like, I guarantee if you start getting up at 5, you're going to be tired at 8 o'clock. But there's something 100%. About, especially for moms. I mean, you guys have the hardest job in the entire world, and that alone time and starting your day out from that grounded, calm space. It's just, I can imagine how integral it is to your life.
Necessary. And I didn't even realize that I would wake up so almost like anxious, angry, like depending what it was, like I'm ready to snap, and it definitely changed the game for sure, waking up. And I do find that by making sure I'm doing things for sleep, for for sure. Like things like not being on my phone the last couple hours before bed, not putting anything in also really helps, right? So that I am able to get up and my mind's not racing. It definitely a peace with it. I think breathing and meditation, when my clients, we talk about food a lot, and they think they're relying on willpower. But if they could just have the discipline for a routine, the willpower is not even necessary. It goes away, all those cravings, like immediately, once you really, I would say 2 weeks into a routine, a lot of those cravings go away because you have the discipline over willpower every day, discipline to do a routine. The rest just kind of falls into place. Well, and there isn't a big overlap. And I think, yeah. And meditation's hard. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't, like breathing and meditation. Yoga, it's a good way to start with yoga, I think. But I do think incorporating meditation and breathing with it is a little harder because it's a little more, I don't know, I found it harder, abstract. And I thought maybe that's how I'm doing it right, is because it is hard, right? Like it's not easy just to turn off my brain at all.
It's contrary to everything in our nature and our culture to be still, to be quiet, and to turn the brain off. I mean, I've been practicing yoga and teaching yoga for 20 years, and it's still the hardest thing I've ever done, to sit still and to quiet my mind. And that's where the practice of yoga comes in, the actual physical practice of it. The physical practice of yoga was designed to burn off all the excess energy that you have. You have this excess energy. We store our emotions and our traumas and everything we have to do today and what we have to do next week. It's all stored in this amazing computer machine that we are. And if we don't release that, it's all just stuck in there wanting to explode. And so the asana practice, or the physical practice of yoga, is releasing that energy so that at the end of it, you have burned away all the energy so that you can sit more easily in silence and stillness and meditation. And it's such an exact science, right? Like you do this so that this will happen, and then it does happen, and that's why for me, like first thing in the morning when I try to meditate, it doesn't work for me. That's why I do pranayama in the morning, because I'm still focused on something that's calming, but my mind is already going about the day. Whereas when I do my practice and then I sit down at the end to try to meditate, it's just whoop, just going right into it. Cool, because I need to burn that energy off.
I agree with you. I'm very similar, because meditation, I used to think, okay, my alarm will go off, I'll start meditating. But no, I needed to move a little bit. And I think a lot of my clients, they feel they need to focus on intensive exercises, and those have a place. Don't get me wrong. It can help with the diabetes. But what I've found is, diabetes is a state of like definitely inflammation, right? And stress, period, hands down. You're not a diabetic without an inflammation. And so if you can't reduce your stress and you can't reduce inflammation, right? You can maybe manage diabetes in the sense of like lowering the sugar, but you're not going to be able to reverse it. You're not going to be able to heal. And so I think if you can get yourself to a place where you can really lower your stress, then decreasing things that cause inflammation is going to be a lot easier for sure. And it's taken me a while. It's still hard to do meditation for me, but I still go for it every day because I know I reap the benefits every time I breathe and meditate after a yoga practice for sure.
Yeah. And, there's other forms of meditation, like moving meditation is a thing. So,
walking meditation.
learning to be still and quiet is one of
studying.
You what?
I was saying I started studying walking meditation. I thought that was so interesting. And I was, very cool. But tell me about it. I know you know more about it than me.
No, the computer glitched. So I lost, I didn't hear you talking. So I lost what you said. So yeah. So moving meditation is a thing, because meditation is basically quieting the mind. And so if you're too restless that sitting still doesn't help you to quiet the mind, even if you're being still, your mind's not in meditation. But if you're out walking, or for me, it's when I'm walking or jogging, that's when my mind can clear for some reason, and I enter this state of calm, of peace. And there's dancing meditation where the eyes are closed and you're just fully in your body. And there's a practice called 5 rhythms, and it's global, it's all over. And have you heard of it?
I heard about it. Yes, it looks so fun. I definitely want to do that. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's moving meditation. And so it's 5 rhythms, from like very slow, methodical, all the way up to what's called chaos. And it's all these people in a room together, and you just do what your body needs to do. There's people crying, yelling, doing ballet, doing hip hop, just moving their body like crazy. I'm excited. We're going to New York in a couple of weeks and I'm doing it there. And that's where I've done it before. And it's so
Amazing, amazing. That's so fun. That's going to be
yeah.
amazing. I've seen people do videos and stuff. I said, this looks like the best day ever, ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really, and it's very, when you get done, again, because you've released the energy within you and you've just quieted your mind to just being in the present moment, you leave there feeling like elated, like just you feel so good because you've, gotten rid of all that junk and then all those happy hormones are able to fly to the top.
that's huge. And honestly, I think that's the hardest thing in the society right now is finding those happy hormones without things
Yeah.
that make us like crave more, right? Crave more dopamine, right? Food, toxins, these things. Our brains are designed for easy energy. They want easy, happy, easy dopamine. And so when we're conditioned like that and we're trying to change our diet or change our lifestyle, you go through dopamine withdrawal. And so I always tell people, especially when they're on their weight loss journey, you need to replace that time that you were spending eating or thinking about food with something else that's going to give you dopamine, right? And that's a perfect
Nice.
example, definitely going to dance, going for a walk, listening to music, whatever it is that makes you happy. I think if you haven't done something like that, do something outside the box that, it isn't going to become addictive or hurtful for you. But that will raise your real dopamine because then your body will learn how to connect that again, that whole, connection, right? So those
Yeah.
hormones. So that's amazing. I'm so
Yeah.
excited. I can't wait to hear how that goes. I'm going to have to like get the name of the place and I'm across the river. So I
You
want to
should
go.
come.
I think I need
Yes.
to crash. I
Yes.
will, we'll check the dates because I'm definitely
Yes.
down. I've been dying to do it. And
Awesome.
I'm trying to talk my husband into doing stuff like that. And he's a little more traditional. We're working on him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can always start with dancing in your living room, right? Put on
That's
really
right.
good songs. I mean, all my clients that I coach, if they're suffering from depression or something, I'm like you need the positive playlist is massive. Our bodies, our hearts are, we respond to music, and then if
100%.
you're moving your body again, you're moving that energy and getting your just burning off the access. So, even just doing it in your living room, or my husband goes skateboarding. He looks like a crazy person. He's got his music on and he's just going down the
Fun.
street like a crazy person, but he comes back like a new human being. If he left angry, he
Absolutely.
comes back like a little kid, so happy.
Absolutely. I know I started doing just music even when I'm bathing my kids and dancing to get some extra step work in. And I have to bathe them, right? It doesn't have to be like a chore, they're capable and they like want to know, they want to request their song, DJ mom in
Oh,
bath time at this point.
so cute.
But it's fine because we definitely get after dinner, it's like, okay, we have to do all the things, right? To get to bed. But yeah, we could make this a little bit more enjoyable. Like it's okay to enjoy your life a little bit, right?
Dude,
Something
I think that
interesting.
should be a movement.
So,
I think that
I think honestly, dancing is, and kids love it. They love it. My kids used to hate getting in the bath because they want to play. But if they felt they can play, in the bath and dance, they love that. There's this group, it's called Ninja Kids, and my son is obsessed. And now I'm like singing the songs, I'm so into it.
love that.
It's cute. It's cute. So I would say let's wrap up this session kind of talking about some practical tips. We've gone over a lot of them, but what do you think if you had to name like your top 3 tips, right? For those wanting to incorporate this kind of lifestyle, with the yoga and breathing into their daily routines, what would you want them to incorporate?
I think some of the most important things that we can do, the first one, it sounds really simple, but sometimes it's really hard, is not touching your phone in the morning for the first hour or two you wake up. It's like we were talking about, the amount of input that our minds are taking in right now is so connected to our level of stress. And so if you can remove that distraction and start your morning from a place of groundedness and stillness and quiet, it is crazy how it changes your day and then it becomes a habit and it changes your life. I mean, sometimes I'll have to pick up my phone to like look at something and
Yes.
immediately in my hand flies to the email and then it starts reading the emails and then it flies to something else and I'm like, what are you doing? It's just crazy how much they're part of us. So just not even having the temptation and leaving it in another room charging for that first hour it'll bring more peace and calm into your life than
Mm,
I can even tell you. So I think that in our day and age, to me, that's one of the biggest things that you can do for stress management and a balanced lifestyle. From a standpoint of probably a lot of what you work with as well, cutting processed foods as much as you can. The processing of our food in our country is not safe.
Not at
It's
all.
so normal. Everything is just filled with pesticides and sugar and binders and fillers and waxes and dyes. And the human body was not made to consume that. So, just starting small, eliminating the things that are in boxes and bags. When I used to train a lot of kids, that's what I would have them do. I would say, try for a week to not eat anything out of a box or a bag. And they were like, well, what am I going to eat? But after the week, they were like, wow, like I feel really good. And I was like, I know. So that's another big one that is good to try and kind of get in the mix and would definitely help with diabetes.
100%.
Yeah. And then I think setting up that morning routine, like we talked about, and, waking up just a little earlier so that maybe you can do 5 minutes of breathing in the morning and some journaling or reading an uplifting book, a scripture or a self-help book or something like that. Just starting your day from a place of intention and mindfulness, and then going to bed at a reasonable hour, like you were saying, without the screens, without the distractions, because rest is so important. It's such a part of the detoxification, healing process that our body goes through every single night. So I think setting that early alarm and starting your day that way, you do get tired earlier and it does help you to sleep a little better, I think.
100%. 100%. All those things are definitely things we definitely preach in our practice for sure. And I do find our society is so obsessed with food, right, to a degree, that even though we eat a third of the day, right, we're working a third of the day, we're sleeping a third of the day, these kind of things, we don't focus on sleep at all. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. I find most people are not thinking we'll move the needle, which will move the needle.
It's so true. So true.
Goals are, those are great. Those are amazing tips. Yeah. And well, Tracey, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And I know you gave some of your favorite tips. I want to just ask you one more question. So for the people on the Vitality prescription, if you were writing them a script yourself, what would you tell them today?
Ew, I would just say that you are worth every extra dose of what you need to put into your life to make yourself feel healthy, happy, stress-free, and joyful. I mean, you really, really are. And so doing the things that they might be hard at first, but doing the things that honor your body, that honor your spirit, and that are just bring you joy is going to bring more healing and happiness to your life than anything.
Oh, I couldn't have said that better myself. I love that, Tracey. Thank you so, so much. And so everyone will definitely link down in the show notes. Definitely get yourself to one of her retreats. You will not be sorry. And I'll also post, she also does some yoga classes online. You should definitely also check that out. So I'll post all those links below, along with that test to figure out your own dosha and figure out where you lie, and definitely start incorporating these tips and see how you feel. Definitely comment below and let us know. All right, Tracey, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was an honor to be here. Bye.
Bye.